Hello, friends. You are with the Infinity. Probably all of us know about the Indian freedom struggle that eventually gave us freedom that we enjoy today. But many of us don't know which entire event gave rise to this struggle, became a platform for the same, and united every Indian soul. So let me take you to 1.5 century ago to explore the cruelest 18 months of Indian history, the Revolt of 1857. The Revolt of 1857, also known by other names such as the Sepoy Mutiny, the Indian Mutiny, the Great Rebellion, the Indian Rebellion of 1857, or the First War of Independence, was a major uprising against the rule of the British East India Company. Even though it created a huge uproar within the 19th century Indian subcontinent, it ultimately failed to meet its desired objectives. And even though it failed to meet its desired objectives, it is considered to be one of the most important events in the modern history of India, as it led to the emergence of a feeling of nationalism among the masses of the Indian subcontinent. The European policies of mercantilism and colonization, which led them to come to the Indian subcontinent with the ambition of trade and earning profits, are considered to be the primary reasons which set the stage for the emergence of the Revolt of 1857. The advent of the English East India Company to the Indian subcontinent in 1608, conquest of Bengal in 1757, eventual expansion of their empire throughout the Indian subcontinent during the 18th and the 19th centuries by using highly exploitative practices, and the impact of their rule over the territory of the subcontinent provided the main impetus for the mutiny to happen. Expansion of the East India Company. The English East India Company enjoyed significant sovereign power over the Indian subcontinent on behalf of the British Crown. This was due to a royal charter granted to them by Queen Elizabeth I on December 31, 1600, providing the company monopoly over all English trade on the Indian Ocean. Consequently, it enabled the company to set its foot on the Indian subcontinent in 1608 and marked a new transition in the history of India antagonized by the company. The expansion of the company's rule over the subcontinent began from 1757 after the English defeated the last independent Nawab of Bengal, Siraj ud Daulah, in the Battle of Plassey. This war, followed by an English triumph over the Mughals and their allies in the Battle of Buxar in 1764, facilitated a smoother expansion of the company over the Indian subcontinent. Within a very short period of time, the English East India Company expanded its rule over the Ganges Yamuna Daob, the Delhi Agra region, Broj, and a number of other districts of Gujarat, parts of Bundelkhand, the Ahmednagar Fort, province of Cuttack, Bombay, Kingdom of Mysore, and others, thereby formally ending the Mughal and Maratha rules and firmly establishing the presence of the English East India Company almost over the entire Indian subcontinent. The last remnants of independent local administration were confined mostly to the northern regions of the Rajputana, Delhi, and Punjab, where the company's influence was steadily increasing amidst a situation of chaos among the local rulers. And can be said in a way that the century between Battle of Plassey of 1757 and the Revolt of 1857 was a period of consolidation for the English East India Company, during which it took over the control of the entire Indian subcontinent and functioned more as an administrator than a trader. Causes. A number of factors led to the outbreak of the Indian Rebellion of 1857. Briefly, the major factors can be classified in the following manner: political causes, discontent generated by the English East India Company's conquests. The conquest of the territories on the part of the company created dissatisfaction and discontentment among the dispossessed ruling families and their successors. Commoners who were dependent on these ruling families were also affected by such conquests, which further antagonized the alien rule among the masses. Doctrine of lapse. The policy of doctrine of lapse, a British policy of expansion of their territory through diplomatic means, used most efficiently by Lord Dalhousie, was applied by the British to annex the principalities of Satara, Jaipur, Jhansi, Nagpur, Udaipur, etc. This created anger among the Indians as it discredited the ancient rite of adoption prevalent among the Hindus. Humiliation of the Mughals. The treatment meted out by the company to the last remaining Mughal rulers created resentment among the Indian Muslims. An example reflecting this would be the fact that the humiliation faced by Mughal Emperor Akbar Shah II at the hands of Lord Amherst, the Governor General of India between 1823 and 1828, greatly alienated the Muslim population as they thought that the British wanted to humble their emperor, thus spreading anger among the Muslims of the country. Suspension of pension of Indian princes and rulers. Reduction of annual pension received by rulers like Rani Jind Kaur, the queen of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, and the suspension of pensions received by Nana Sahib, an Indian Peshwa of the Maratha Empire. Lakshmi Bai of Jhansi, etc., caused them to oppose the British. Social religious causes. Social exclusiveness. The British employed a policy of social exclusiveness in dealing with their subjects to the Indian subcontinent. An unwritten rule was prevalent in the society in which the natives were considered to be inferior in front of their British counterparts. Social legislation. The British, with the help of some well educated Indians like Raja Ram Mohan Roy, passed a number of laws to reform the Indian society. For example, Lord Canning enacted the Hindu Widows Remarriage Act 1857, popularly known as the Widow Remarriage Act, while Lord Bentinck passed the Bengal Sati Regulation in 1829 to improve the condition of women in India. However, orthodox sections of the society viewed this as an intervention on the part of the British government into their traditions and culture, leading to the spread of anger among the orthodox Hindus of the subcontinent. Missionary activities. The Charter Act of 1813, which was a renewal of the Royal Charter that granted the company sovereign power over the subcontinent, provided Christian missionaries the permission to enter the company's Indian territories and propagate their religion and Western culture in the subcontinent. They made efforts to convert Muslims and Hindus of India into Christians by denouncing the principles of local religions, which in turn spread a feeling of hatred towards the British among the Indians. Economic causes. Ruin of mercantile class. The harsh and exploitative economic policies employed by the British crippled the Indian trade and commerce of the 17th century. A policy of one-way free trade was imposed upon the Indians in which heavy duty was levied on the Indian goods which went to Britain, whereas British manufactured goods did not have to pay any tax for coming to India. This practically led to the end of Indian exports to other countries, destruction of Indian manufacturers. The one way free trade policy drastically affected the Indian textile industry, particularly the cotton textile industry. The policy of mercantilism followed by the British, viewed India as a source of raw materials and a market for finished goods, enabling machine made British goods to flood the Indian markets. This colonial pattern of trade led to the deindustrialization of the Indian economy, completely destroying the Indian manufacturing industry. Pressure on land. The ruin of the manufacturing industry forced millions of artisans, craftsmen, spinners, weavers, smelters, smiths, etc., to get engaged in agriculture and agriculture related activities. This exerted huge pressure on agricultural land, making India into an agricultural colony of the British Empire. Impoverishment of peasantry. The English East India Company introduced a number of laws and measures to extract the maximum amount of agricultural share from the masses of the Indian subcontinent. Several innovative methods of revenue collection were implemented by the British, leading to large scale misery for the peasant class of the territory. From the very beginning, European colonizers monopolized plantation farming, for instance, tea and indigo, and forced Indian peasants to grow such plants on their terms. Also, peasants and other small scale Indian traders and craftsmen were highly exploited at the hands of moneylenders. Military causes, service conditions. The derogatory conditions under which the sepoys of the EEIC were forced to work created widespread dissatisfaction among them. A number of factors gave rise to resentment in the minds of the sepoys of the company's army. For instance, unsatisfactory service conditions, encroachment of religious customs by the authorities, offense against their dignity, unequal scale of payment, and unavailability of opportunities for the Indians to hold senior positions. Reduction of allowances. After the conquest and annexation of any province, the company authorities used to withdraw allowances of its army personnel and post troops on such occupied provinces on reduced salaries. This policy used to demoralize the sepoys, which was evident from the fact that in 1844, four Bengal regiments had refused to move to Sindh without receiving the payment of extra allowances. The General Service Enlistment Act. The General Service Enlistment Act was a law passed by Lord Canning's government in 1856, making it compulsory for the recruits of the Army of the EEIC to serve in overseas territories as and when required. This created large scale dissatisfaction among the Indian natives who believed that traveling overseas will make one lose his or her own caste. Therefore, the enactment of this law was a direct violation of the religious practices of the Indian masses. Immediate cause. All the factors mentioned above culminated in the creation of general grief and discontentment among the masses of the subcontinent, which needed only a mere spark to explode into an inferno. The spark was provided by the introduction of the Enfield P-53 rifle in 1856, which used pre-greased paper cartridges as ammunition. In order to load the rifle with ammunition, the soldiers needed to bite off the greased wrapping paper of the cartridge. In January 1857, a rumor began to spread in the Bengal regiments of the company's army that the greased cartridges were made from the fat of cows and pigs. This hurt the respective religious feelings of both Hindu and Muslim soldiers who believed that it was a deliberate attempt on the part of the government to defile their respective religious principles, as the cow was sacred to the Hindus and the pig was a taboo for the Muslims. As a consequence, these soldiers refused to use these cartridges and raised their voices against the authorities, making the authorities take actions against them and sparking the onset of the rebellion. So today we came across the causes that led to this revolt. Hope you understood everything. This was my first video, so your comments matter me a lot. Please feel free to write in the comment section. Hope you enjoyed. Bye for now. Stay safe.